James 3, verse 1. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire! And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not to be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And the harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. At the end of chapter 1, James wrote that those who are practicing true and pure and undefiled religion before God should bridle the tongue. The next few messages from James are about choosing the right path and practicing godliness that is pleasing to him. In this section, James is going to teach us about how each of us possess a dangerous weapon. Each of us is born with an instrument that can do great damage or great good. James is going to teach us about how we use our tongues. Now, the first warning given in chapter 3 here might be fairly surprising. James says that many should not become teachers. Now, that seems counterintuitive. Why would James say that Christians should rethink the idea of becoming teachers? James cannot be saying that no one should be a teacher, because then there would be no one to preach the gospel. God does want teachers. Now, I think from this, there were those that were making a big show out of being a teacher. They saw it as a glorious position and one with opportunity attached to it. James says that's not the reason to be teaching the gospel. In fact, James challenges those who think that. Do you want to be judged more strictly? Are you prepared to be judged with a greater strictness? It is certainly true that teachers are judged by other Christians more strictly, but that is not what James is talking about at all. James is referring to God's judgment. So why will teachers be judged with a greater strictness? Well, James explains in verse 2. Notice that word for, right? He's explaining his teaching here. The reason teachers will be judged with a stricter judgment is because we all stumble in many ways. Teachers by necessity must talk more. Therefore, teachers will be under a stricter judgment because they will have said many more words than those who are not teachers. And it's not that God is judging teachers differently than other Christians. It's that teachers speak more than those who do not teach, and therefore there are more words to be judged by God. Notice he also says here that the one who can control his tongue is the one that is a complete, mature Christian. Now, the point of that is the fact that taming the tongue is hard. It is hard work. And the one that has mastered that has clearly developed spiritual control over it. It's a command, but it's one that is so hard to exercise. In verse 3 here, James now begins to explain why the tongue must be controlled. It's a very important part of the body. And in fact, James uses 3 illustrations to express what the tongue is like and why it must be controlled. Very quickly here, verse 3, the bit in the horse's mouth, right? That just reminds us the tongue has the power to direct others, to guide, to steer, and to move in a specific direction. It's talking about being persuasive, someone who can design their argument in a way that can move you to the way that they want you to think or to believe. So it's a powerful instrument in doing that. Good for the one with good intentions, evil for the one with bad intentions. Same thing with verse 4, at the rudder of the ship here. And then verse 5, the tongue is like a fire. It can destroy. Like a little spark can begin a great fire that destroys a forest, so can a harmful, ill-timed word harm and hurt another person. Also, do you notice here in verses 6, 7, and 8 that James tells us that the tongue can corrupt us. The words that we say can corrupt our hearts. We speak filthy, crude language, then we are corrupting our hearts and our thinking. That's been James's point. The tongue controls the body. So when our tongues are foul and filthy and are not godly and pure, then our bodies will follow along. When we gossip and speak malicious words, then we become ugly people with dark hearts. When we slander people, we are exposing our cold hearts. Our words darken our hearts and stain our souls. James shares some irony here with us in verses 7 and 8. Humans have been able to tame all kinds of wild animals and birds. I'm amazed to see these huge wild animals become like putty in the hands of the animal tamer. I grew up in South Florida, used to love going to SeaWorld, see Shamu, that big killer whale. It's a killer whale. Right? Don't miss the killer part. And yet you see them with their trainers just doing all the things that the trainer tells them to do. Now, sometimes things go awry, but they're able to tame them. They're able to use them for what they want them to do. But what about the tongue? James says the tongue is more difficult to tame than a wild animal. It's a restless evil, and it's full of deadly poison. James then concludes his argument about the tongue here with how inconsistent our tongues are. With our tongues, we bless the Lord, and then we curse people who are made in the very image and likeness of God. So from the same mouth flows blessings and curses. How is it possible? Why do we do this? But this is most certainly what happens. One moment we can say beautiful, upbuilding words, and at the next moment tear a person down with our words. Verses 11 and 12 should drive a stake into our hearts. A spring cannot pour out fresh water and salt water. A fig tree cannot bear olive trees. A grapevine cannot produce figs. A salt pond cannot yield fresh water. Now, what's the point with all these examples? Those who claim to be Christians cannot have a mouth that speaks curses, hurtful words, inconsiderate words, impure words, or words that do not build up. James's implication is very clear. Springs don't produce fresh and salt water. Christians, true Christians, don't speak blessings and curses. Christians don't allow their tongues to go unchecked or uncontrolled. In verse 13, James asks a question. Who is wise and understanding among you? People cannot merely think they have wisdom. Wisdom must be shown in action. A lot of action in James, isn't there? The evidence of humble, meek wisdom is shown in good conduct. Now, to state the point more sharply, we prove which wisdom we have by our actions. James is asking us to evaluate who not only knows what is right, but also practices what is right. Good conduct is the inevitable outgrowth of true wisdom. Wisdom is revealed by the way we live our lives. James poses a challenge here for us. Our relationship with God is revealed by the life we live. Just as works showed us what kind of faith we have, so also works show what kind of wisdom we have. So verse 14, here's what wrong wisdom looks like. Verse 14, but if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. Notice there you are false to the truth. You're claiming to be wise, but you're living in a way that denies that claim. The things that he says here about worldly wisdom is all about me, myself, and I. I will take care of myself. I deserve this. I demand that. I demand respect. I deserve attention. That's how the world teaches us to think and to act. James says that wisdom is not from above. It's earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. There's that comparison again with demons. We saw that earlier in chapter 2. You think that you're of God when you act like this? You're not of God. You are demonic. You're of the devil, not God. So stop fooling yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Godly wisdom is nothing like the wisdom that comes from this earth. Verse 16 describes the results of worldly wisdom here. When we have jealousy, envy, and selfish ambition, as the world rejects the gospel, there will be an increase of disorder and every vile practice. Aren't we seeing that? Why is crime increasing? Crime is increasing because the gospel is being rejected. Violent crime against Christians, particularly, being targeted, is on the rise. More and more we hear of instances where an active shooter situation occurs at a church or a Christian-based school. Why are these things happening? Because the gospel is being rejected. Rejecting God does not make us more civilized, as the experts and philosophers of this world want to claim. Rejecting God causes us to be more disorderly and more wicked. When we reject the wisdom that comes from above and accept the self-centered life, our lives will become more wicked and broken. Our families will become more disorderly and broken. Relationships will be damaged and broken. Our society and relationships simply become more destructive and broken as we focus on ourselves and stop focusing on God. Did you catch the key word there? Something is broken. We're making a mess out of our lives and a mess of the world around us the longer we remain selfish and reject the wisdom from above. Mensa is an organization whose members have an IQ of 140 or higher. Several years ago, there was a Mensa convention in San Francisco, and several members luncheoned at a local cafe. While dining, they discovered that their salt shaker contained pepper, and their pepper shaker was full of salt. How could they swap the contents of the bottles without spilling and using only the implements at hand? Clearly, this was a job for Mensa. The group debated and presented ideas, and finally came up with a brilliant solution involving a napkin, a straw, and an empty saucer. They called the waitress over to dazzle her with their solution. "Ma'am," they said, "we couldn't help but notice that the pepper shaker contains salt, and the salt shaker—" "Oh," the waitress interrupted. "So sorry about that." She unscrewed the caps of both bottles and switched them. This story clearly illustrates that being smart is not the same as being wise. You can possess a great deal of this world's knowledge, but still lack wisdom. High IQ doesn't always translate into the practical application of daily living. So which wisdom leads your life? Are you following the wisdom from above or the wisdom from below? It's easy to know which one you are following. Just look at your life's conduct. Look at your character and your attitude. If you have jealousy, envy, and selfish ambition, then you are lying to yourself if you think you are following God. You're following the wisdom of this world. Those who follow God show it by their good conduct that is full of purity, peace, gentleness, and mercy. Live the righteous life that God demands from you. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
I don't know about tomorrow. I just live from day to day. its skies may turn to gray. I don't worry o'er the future, for I know what Jesus said, and today I'll walk beside him, for he knows what is ahead. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. Every step is getting brighter as the golden stairs I climb. Every burden's getting lighter. Every cloud is silver line. There the sun is always shining. There no tear will dim the eye. At the ending of the rainbow, where the mountains touch the sky, many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. I don't know about tomorrow. It may bring me poverty, but the one who feeds the sparrow is the one who stands by me, and the path that be my portion may be through the flame or flood, but his presence goes before me, and I'm covered with his blood. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand,